And the agent, she was like, "What is it?" I was like, "It's a snake." Literally got in her car, drove off, called me, "Hey, I'm out. Like, the inspection's over for me. I can't see this."
Welcome back to the Bearded Realtors podcast, Jason.
Yeah. We already get today. We have a very special guest.
Uh-huh.
We have Mark Springirth with Springirth Services. I almost said Mark Springirth with Springirth Home Services. But today, Mark's going to talk to us more about his experiences of home inspections, what he's ran into, hopefully some interesting stories, and
Always.
yeah, and then we kind
Sure.
of go from there.
Absolutely. So for those who don't know who you are, if you could just sort of give us a brief introduction on who it is and what you do.
My name is Mark Springirth. I've been with, I've had my company open for about 8-9 years now. So we do home inspections. We do other inspections other than home inspections like radon, septic, water sampling, things like that. We can get that taken care of for you too. Pretty much kind of just all encompassing. Typically for people that are buying houses, but we also do it for new builds if they've already lived in them, or if you're just curious as to what's going on with your house.
Okay.
Do you get questions often or phone calls that people just say, "Come inspect my house" randomly?
Not as often as resale, but we do. We probably do about 5% of our business a year is somebody just calling in and just curious as to what's going on with the
Yeah,
house.
it's a pretty
That's
interesting
cool.
question. I've thought about that too.
Yeah, like if you ever just want to know what's wrong with your house, like
Right.
like I don't know, like I don't want to get my crawl space or spiders and snakes or whatever. Like you know,
Only
that,
during
like,
the buy and sell is kind of what I would
Yeah.
think too. Yeah.
It's a rare breed that call us to do that. Usually they have like an ulterior like motive, like, hey, we're thinking about either like staying in the house or we're thinking about selling in a couple years or maybe doing an addition. Like, could you come out and just take a look and do a full
Okay.
inspection for us and kind of do a consultation?
That's pretty cool. That goes into like my next question because I'm sure you've seen a lot, right? You've seen, well, you could probably say everything at this point up, according to you. But what are the more common things that you do see that potential sellers, like you just mentioned, could sort of be aware of or be on the lookout so that they could prevent it when it does come time to sell?
So it's funny. Like, I always think, like, I'm always like, what else can you see? Like, I've been doing this for almost 10 years. Like, what else can you see?
yeah.
It's almost daily. Like, I see something, maybe not daily at this point, but weekly at least,
Uh-huh.
where I see something and I'm like, what is this? Like, and it catches me off by surprise. So there's always something new, whether it's like a new way that, builders are doing stuff,
Right.
or if it's something that is a house that was built in 1800 and it's, they still have some original stuff from back then.
Right.
So seeing stuff like that, it's always something new.
Or like a DIY, or you do it yourself,
Yeah.
where someone tries to sister the truss rods or whatever in their basement to make sure that there's no more settlement. And you just look at this board and you're like, that's not even connected to anything.
That's going to come up in the report.
Yeah.
And people, one of the most common questions that people ask
Okay.
is they'll ask like, why? Like, why would they do this? And I've learned like over time, like you're just beating your head against the wall trying to figure out why. Like, let's just figure out, okay, what's the next step?
Yeah.
Sure.
Some of the, back to your question though, like some of the most common things that we see, it's just deferred maintenance stuff. It's, gutters and downspouts that are coming loose because they've been clogged for 10 years. It's caulking deteriorating on the outside. There's rot on the outside on the trim. Little stuff like that makes, kind of a big deal if it goes over an extended period of time. But it's mainly like little stuff like that.
So what are some of your tips on or to those homeowners to stay ahead of them or to sort of take care of them so that they don't come up on the inspection? Less items, the better,
question.
right?
Get on a program. One thing that we offer to our customers, every single person that comes through and is a customer of ours that does a full home inspection, they get a maintenance program for their house. So like we have already pre-plugged things in that are in almost every single house, like changing your filters, cleaning your gutters, caulking, things like that, exterior paint. So it kind of helps them to at least remember to take the steps to do those things. So that's a big thing, is to just get on a program where it's kind of, it's like investing or anything else. Like it's just automatic. Like you don't have to really think about it too much. You've already got that plan in place, and it helps keep your house up to
I
date.
see, and that's huge that you guys do that for said client or whatever, just because again, like not a lot of people think about changing their air filter all the time. Like if you want to make sure your furnace or your AC or HVAC system is staying healthy, so that way you don't have problems. Like I give you a story we had, like Rachel's house is 7 years old and she's never really taken care of her HVAC system, and now we're having problems. I'm like, this isn't something that should be happening to her AC in the middle of the summertime right now. And come to find out, she never really changed her air filter, and then like never really cleaned off the actual AC unit itself because it just had all kinds of like crud growing on it. The circulation was just terrible. So I feel like having like what you guys do, like those service reminders, just to help out, like could be huge.
And it's something that like in Rachel's case, like if I were to go to her work, I'd have no idea probably what to do. So it's really just educating her and like our other customers and stuff, like letting them know, like some people don't even know that you have a filter to change. People don't know you have to clean your HVAC system.
And that they're all different sizes too. That's another thing. Like you can't
part
just
of
go
that
buy
is
one.
the education, right? You're going through with a lot of times first-time home buyers. You're teaching them what everything does, and letting them know how these things work, just so that they know about that deferred maintenance and what they're going to be responsible for. And over the years, things have changed. You've been doing this 8-9 years, right? What are some of the ways, or how do you keep up with the changes in codes, the changes in regulations, just to make sure that your inspections are accurate? That way your clients have that much more confidence in you. So
big misconception, like we do a lot of new builds. So keeping up on that stuff is like, I try to read up on it. It changes every couple years. Each county, each state can have different ordinances, different like rules, regulations. So it's tough to keep up on all those. A home inspection in itself, it's not a code enforcing inspection. So like, we're not there to say, hey, this county and this jurisdiction is, you have to do this. It's good for us to know like the basics of that stuff, but it's almost impossible to know, okay, this jurisdiction in this city, like let's say Gaithersburg, for instance, like they have the city of Gaithersburg, which is inside Montgomery County. They might have something that's a little bit different than like Germantown that they have to do when they built the house in 1992. Versus like if they did an addition in 2001, then it would have been a little bit different. So like, it's tough like to stick with like code enforcing stuff. It's more function, safety, and maintenance and education as to what's going on with it. It is nice to know, okay, when this deck was built, this is how it typically was done back then. But now you could do these little extra things that's going to help make it that much safer and improve your space that much more, as an example.
Yeah. And I like how you put it as it's educational, because I think a lot of people, especially first-time home buyers, they go in thinking that it is a pass or fail code inspection. Like, I can't tell you how many questions I get to, like, am I going to pass or am I going to fail? Like, is this what's going? I'm like, this never pass or fail. It's all educational, just like you said. Like, I want you to be aware that if something is worth keeping an eye on, you're going to find it. Or that needs repair or fixed immediately, something like that.
And aside from that diligence and expertise, what other services or resources or solutions do you provide your clients that set you apart or help to set you apart from other home inspectors?
So in addition to what we were talking about before, like just the services that we do, we try to make it so that when you call into us, like we have an answer for you and we can help you with it. Just recently, we ended up adding on sewer scope inspections. So we're doing those now, which is something that we didn't offer previously. And it's something that I'm always surprised every time we do a sewer scope. I'm like, this line's not that old. There's not going to be an issue. And then we find that there's roots in the system, or there's a disconnect, and it's actually just draining in your front yard, and that's why that hole's there. So that's something that we'll do. We try to really get to know the client. So when they call into us, we try to ask questions as to, hey, when you were at the house, like, are there things that you saw that you're particularly concerned about? Or is there anything about the home in general that like you want like special attention to? And we'll ask those questions, not that like we're going to do that any less than what we would if we didn't ask those, but it's more knowing, okay, what like they're concerned about, the deck as an example. They're concerned about the deck. Okay, why are you concerned about the deck? Well, I saw in the news, this always happens in June, I saw in the news that there was like 70 people that were hurt in a deck collapse. And I'm like, wait, 70 people in a deck collapse? Like, shouldn't be 70 people on a deck. And it usually happens around graduation time. With COVID, there hasn't been that many parties, but usually that's when that will happen. So it's really getting to know the customer, the buyer, the seller, knowing, okay, what are your concerns? What are your past experiences? Because those past experiences are going to help us to communicate with you as to why this house, you don't have to worry about a gas leak in it, because like your last house might have had a gas leak in it, but this house, you don't have gas. So you don't have to worry about that.
Right.
Yeah, what was it you were telling us the other day that you've had people just Google what to ask your home inspector, and it has nothing to do with the house they're purchasing whatsoever, and then you just immediately call them out like, what website are you looking at right now?
Yeah. And that's like, we're able to do that because, and we've only known them for a couple hours, but we try to gain that trust quickly.
Sure.
So that they can actually like understand, and we can do as good a job as we can, like giving them the information in a way that they're going to understand it. And part of that is like getting their guard down and knowing, hey, we're here for you. And this is something that, you know, I see you on your phone, you're asking questions that have nothing to do with this house. Like, I got to call you out, man. Like,
They're not
Googling the questions.
They're not
which is
Googling
good.
the seasonality of deck collapses. I didn't know that deck collapses had a season. So that was very informative right there.
Yeah.
I mean, think like, you're probably not going to have too many deck collapses in December.
Yeah. Would have never thought of that. Sure. And, you know, obviously going through, everybody's going to be different. Every home's going to be different, you know. Could you walk us through one of your more challenging inspections, whether, you know, it was something was not right or going wrong, or maybe it was the client, and kind of how you advised your clients and helped them navigate that situation?
So this is a few years back. I had a couple that was looking to purchase their first house. I did 5 inspections for them within 2 months, and they were all different houses. So like the first one was a condo, and they realized I really don't want to be in a condo. So, you know, they called us back a couple weeks later. It was like a single family home that was much larger. It needed a good amount. There was a good amount of deferred maintenance in it. So that one actually had a gentleman that was living there. He was there for the inspection. The seller was. He was like mid 80s or so, nice guy. But every time we would like, I'd go to check something, he'd like question me, like, how come you're checking the outlet? And I, being like, I'm here to educate you, like, what's going on? Oh, I just want to make sure that like it's wired properly, that it's working. And he's like, huh, okay. And then I go to like the dishwasher. I test the dishwasher. Why are you doing that? Well, you know, I just want to check to see if there's any leaks or anything like that. And then he started getting a little bit more agitated. I'm like, is there like something that like, you have a question or something, like, is there something I can help with? Like, I'm trying to figure out why he keeps getting agitated. And then finally he blurts out, he's like, I don't know why you're checking all these things. Why would I have something that doesn't work? And like, it was like that for it was a larger house. It was like that for the rest of the like 3 hours at the inspection.
Oh my God.
Wow.
Why,
So, like,
why would I have something that doesn't work? Why wouldn't you know that, Mark?
Sure.
I mean, it's a valid question.
Yeah.
But most of the time, I think that sellers, they just, and this is what I told him, I was like, most of the time, I don't think that sellers actually know like when there's an issue, like until it gets to a point where it's just blatant.
Yeah.
Like, you have this landscape around you of your house, and you're not walking through your house with a flashlight, looking at the ceiling, like looking for water stains. Like,
Right.
So that one was pretty challenging in itself. Like the people, you know, they didn't really know what they wanted. They finally landed this great house that was a little rancher. The house was like a museum. Like the HVAC was like from the 70s. The water heaters from the 80s.
Not the museum I was thinking of. Like, oh man, maybe they just had a lot of
Like,
cool
oh,
stuff.
sounds nice.
No,
Yeah.
it's just an ancient house.
But the seller, like he was the original owner and took care of this thing like it was like his job depended on it.
Oh, wow.
And everything was like, it looked like it was brand new. And they ended up with this awesome house. And I mean, it took them 5 inspections. I was hoping that maybe they'd figure out what house they wanted before that, but that was challenging with the older guy as well. With
I also feel like during that time that was a common thing. I mean, because was it like 2020 around that time frame?
No, this was like 2017.
Oh, never mind. Because I was referring to like I imagine a lot of walk-in talks that you probably saw a lot of reoccurring people, trying to get into something. But this was, yeah.
It was very
Never
rare.
mind.
It was very rare.
That's insane.
Oh, yeah.
When you bring up dealing with the clients and communication and how you deal with things, we all know that that's key, right? You can talk about a broken light switch, and you could call it a fire hazard, or you could call it a 50-cent fix at Home Depot. And how can you explain how it is that you communicate to your clients in a way that they fully understand the situation, and mountains don't become molehills?
Yeah, I like that. I've heard that. So it all starts with getting to know them. So one of the questions that we try to ask them is, what do you do for a living? That's one thing that it's conversation, helps me get to know them. But if they tell me like a position that is more technical, then that tells me off the bat they're probably going to want more technical answers. Versus if they tell me that they do something that has to do that's not as technical, it's pretty like free flowing, then if I tell them a technical answer, they're not, one, going to understand it, or two, like they don't want to, their brain doesn't work that way, and they don't want to hear it that way. So it's really getting to know how can they understand the information in a way that I'm telling it. So one, it's getting to know who they are and how they can receive that. Two, like it's knowing like, okay, the switch is a fire hazard. It's an easy fix. Try not to use those words like fire hazard, because right away, like it really does like okay, fire hazard, I'm done. Like
trigger word.
Yeah,
you immediately
it's a
think
trigger
that and
word.
just go off the deep end thinking that, okay, I got to get out of here.
And what I'll do is, if that word needs to be used, I try to ease them into it. So it's not like, like this is a fire hazard. Okay, let's go check out the basement. Like it's okay, like this switch here, like can you hear how like it's going bzz, bzz, when you turn it on? So what that is it's an arc. So you've got a black wire, which is your hot, a white wire, which is your neutral, and then you have a bare wire, which is your ground. Your hot brings the power to the switch or the outlet or the light, and then it should go through that fixture and come back to the neutral, which then brings it back to the panel. So when they can understand that, and then when hey, that noise that you're hearing, that is the power jumping from one wire to the next, and it shouldn't do that. So it's probably a loose connection, or there's something else that's probably going on with it. It's an easy fix to do. And then, okay, well, like what if I don't fix it? It's like, well, just like anything, like what if I don't wear my seatbelt going down the road? Like, you're probably going to be fine. But if you get into an accident, it's probably not that great. Like,
Right.
So it's kind of the same thing. I try to like use like everyday stuff that they can relate to.
Yeah, that's a good way to put that, like with the seatbelt analogy, because like you're explaining it in a way to where like, hey, this is what's going on, this is what it is, and it's going to be an easy fix. And if you, like you said, if you don't do it, you just never know what's going to come up. So like for me, like it's a great thing. Like I'm not a very technical person, so I hear something like that, I'm like, okay, I feel safe, but I should fix this, pretty quick. Or ask the sellers to fix it.
And that kind of brings us to the next question. It's not uncommon for buyers now to waive a home inspection contingency. A lot of times they'll do it for information purposes only. It does allow them to, in certain circumstances, stay competitive with their offer. What advice would you give to a buyer or a real estate agent that would look to use this strategy and both be able to stay competitive and stay safe, making sure that they make the right decision?
It really depends on the individual and their situation. I mean, for an example, let's say that they're looking at buying like a house that's $300,000 and they've got $30 million, and which is a very rare situation.
They're downsizing.
It happens to me all the time, Biaggi. I don't know if you just have $30 million in your buyer's pockets, but
if they have like if they're very handy, like if they work in construction, if they can fix things, if they can go in and they can look at stuff and have a good idea as to what's going on, like each situation is a little different. So it really kind of depends on, okay, this is my situation, this is how much I'm going to spend on it, this is how much I can, like, if I have to start fixing things, then this is how much money I have left over to start fixing things. So it's really knowing like, hey, what's your budget? Like, what can you handle if the worst case scenario comes up? If you got to replace the roof, if you got to replace the HVAC, if you got to replace your windows, like bigger appliances, stuff like that, can I handle that? So in those cases, like waiving the inspection, like it might be a good strategy for that particular situation. There's another thing you could do, which is a walk and talk, and that kind of is in between an inspection versus like not getting one. You get an hour to get out with like an inspector, which is something that we'll do. We come out to the property with you to like your showing, and we try to give you as much information about the house as possible within that hour. It's not as thorough as a home inspection, but at least it's better than not seeing the house with someone that like you're just kind of going in blind.
Yeah, you're giving some valuable knowledge for them to make a good decision.
Yep.
Like, sure, you're still paying you for the walk and talking for your time, but at least it's avoiding like a big decision or a big regret or something like that.
I mean, that's a great way to put it. Like, it's pretty much, you know, going into that situation, it's okay, I'm going to put in here that I'm going to waive my inspection contingency, but I know that I'm not going to have information about the house to make a better decision. So am I okay with that? Or is this like my first house and this is the top of my budget? And if I win it, then what happens next if I move in and then there's issues?
Because you want to make sure you win, like you say, and that might not be a win if you inherit $20,000 worth of problems at the top of the budget.
And it's a common thing. So I was listening to a statistic the other day. I think 40% of buyers who bought a house around 2020 to 2021 in that time frame are in complete regret because they felt like they're forced into doing what they didn't want to do to get a house that they probably really didn't even want. So that's something to like really keep in mind, especially now as like maybe they want to sell or like
maybe they want to sell.
They want to sell. I mean, if you want to sell, if you bought in 2020, give us a call.
If you regret buying in 2020, would like to sell,
or buy.
If you
especially if you have 30 million in.
Yes. Or even if you don't, you know.
Or even if you don't.
But yeah, a lot of good stuff. I don't know. What you asked him a question earlier. Was it like, I don't know, it was like an interesting story he was telling.
About some challenges or some
I don't know, what's the most interesting thing you can see that you are comfortable with saying in front of our viewers? You told us what was
common. What is the most uncommon thing that you've, or some of the most uncommon things?
I mean, just the stuff that you find and you see in people's houses.
Yeah.
I did one in downtown Frederick recently. It was a renovation. Great house. I mean, it's an awesome row home. Really happy for the people that got it. They seem like really great people. One thing that they did, and we used to find stuff when I was doing construction inside walls when you're remodeling, they had like this little board that had like do not touch for buyers, like at the showing. Said artifacts found inside the house while they were looking through it. So I was like, oh, this is pretty cool. Like
an artifact.
One of the artifacts was a pack of like Marlboro like cigarettes. And I'm like, I don't really see that as an artifact. But it was an older thing. So some of the stuff that we just find in the houses and like things like, I was mentioning earlier, like sometimes we'll find like guns in vacant houses, and then we'll let the buyer know, we'll let the buyer's agent know, we'll call the listing agent and say, hey, this is in the attic or this is in this area. Just a heads up, like you might want to let the people know that are selling it. They might have forgot something. And just the people, like it's always like every day is different. Like you can do the same house the same exact 5 houses on the same street and have 5 different buyers. You're gonna have 5 different experiences.
Yeah.
It's just getting to know them. Like it's a blast. It's so much fun.
And I know you found some little critters and animals too, because I did a home inspection for me once, and luckily, like my buyer was he was a good old boy. So I remember like finding like black snakes in the house, and
I
like. Yeah, I remember it was either you or Jeremy sent me the video while you got, because unfortunately I couldn't make it to the inspection that day, and Jeremy's just like, cool. It's like, you can just set him back outside. I think he texted me after he closed it, like, yep. He called him Frank the Snake. Found his way back in the house and just let him
I was like, when you put him out there, he got in somehow. Like, you got to take him away. Like,
found his way back in. So
there was a house in Liberty Town that I did. It was built in like the 1800s.
Was it Erica's house?
It was. No, it wasn't far from your house. Your house was in 8 years. It was in like the 60s. It was built in the 1800s. It's right on, 26. So you come up 75, turn right, and it's right there on 26 as you go out of town. Great guy that bought it. Really nice guy. There was about 60 snake skins that I counted in the house. God. When we got up into the attic space, there was like 5 of them laid out that were like 8 feet long.
What?
And so I told him, I was like, hey, obviously, like, there's an issue with like snakes in the house.
Do you call that a snake at 8 feet? I mean,
Oh,
I'm not
yeah.
from
The biggest one,
New York City. We don't have 8-foot snakes, right?
the biggest black snake that I've seen is 9 feet.
Oh.
And
Okay.
it was right above my head.
Wait, in the house, or is this just like?
So this was in a garage. This was a detached garage over in Newmarket. It was like there's fields and stuff all around it.
Yeah.
And we did the house, and then we went out to the garage, did the lower floor. And the way that we do our inspections, we always try to like do the floor first, then the walls, and then the ceilings. So I'm on the second floor of this garage. I did the floor. I'm like, okay, cool. Everything's nice and safe. I can everything looks good. Started doing the wall. All right, that all looks good. And then I look up to look at the rafters, and about like right here is like this real, like as thick as the microphone, like black snake.
Oh my God.
And it went across trusses, and rafters are usually set 2 feet apart.
Mm-hmm.
It went across like 4 into 5 bays. And I was like, oh my gosh. And I started like walking out, and the agent, she was like, what is it? I was like, it's a snake. Literally got in her car, drove off, called me, hey, I'm out. Like, the inspection's over for me. I can't see this.
Jason and I would never do that.
Yeah, I would stay outside of the house, but I will not leave the property.
We would call a professional.
Yeah.
She was so scared.
Yeah. Wow,
But
and this is why you don't do your own home inspection. If you want to know what's wrong with it, you call Mark, and he'll come take care of that for you.
I won't get the snakes out.
Yeah,
but
he'll find them. That's what it sounds
Yeah,
like.
finding them is number one.
that year, I dubbed the summer of snakes because I must have seen like 150 snakes that summer. It was. But the guy, I followed up the guy in Liberty Town. He said, I called him like 3 or 4 months later. I was like, hey, what's going on? How's everything going? He's like, oh, house is in good shape, man. Like nothing's really like 1800s, you know.
Yeah.
Stuff
Yeah,
always
yeah.
comes up with that stuff. And I was like, how are the snakes? He's like, oh man. He's like, I've taken out about 60 snakes.
What?
60.
60.
Come
He's like, it's
on.
really not that bad. They're kind of like pets now.
Not bad.
He's like, I just, they just pick them up nice and calm, put them in a pillowcase.
That's it.
Drive them for
He's a
about 10
snake
miles,
now.
drop
That's
them
it.
off in a field.
Yeah.
You buy a snake house, he's now a snake.
Well, you got to think
That's
too,
a lifestyle
The
choice.
snakes are probably feeding off of something in there. So
Yeah.
what if you got to think that you have a bigger problem than snakes? Like,
Oh, yeah.
I don't know if you maybe
That's
you
a
have a
good
rat
point.
problem now.
That's
I
a
don't
Maybe
know.
they're eating themselves.
That's
a
great
Bigger
point.
snakes or eating smaller ones. I don't know.
Cannibal snakes.
So, aside from where to look for snakes and how to check other things, in closing, do you have any other non-pest related advices for first-time home buyers that might be
Oh, yeah. So
might be out there?
a big thing to look for, and this isn't always the case, but like your grading around the outside of the house. If you have a hill, especially like with ranchers and houses that are a little bit longer, if you have a hill that's coming towards the back of the house, when you go in the basement, look on that back wall for moisture. If you can see the foundation wall, look for like a horizontal crack and look for bowing. If you have that, what is going on is that grading on the back side of the house. All that moisture is coming down towards the home, and that soil is getting really heavy. It's called hydrostatic pressure. Think about it like you have a 5-gallon bucket full of dry dirt, or you got a 5-gallon bucket full of mud. The one with mud's gonna be much heavier. So that's what's been pushing on the foundation wall for years and years and years, and that will cause it to bow in. So that's something to definitely keep in mind. I honestly think that most people are honest. There's every once in a while, like someone proves me wrong, but I really don't think that many sellers try to hide stuff. I really do think that things are surprises, but when you get into a basement, a good thing to look for water entry, look on the back side of the drywall. They can paint the front side of the drywall all day. If they paint the back side of it, the unfinished areas, like in your utility rooms, that's a sure sign that there's been water inside that house.
Interesting.
You can also look for like water stains on the back side of that too.
Yeah.
So that's a big thing, especially when you're going
They
in and
paint the
looking
back
at it.
side of the drywall. I would have never even thought of that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Usually they're lazy and they'll do it like 3 feet up and it really sticks out. But yeah, that's something that'll let you know, hey, there's been water in this house at some point.
That's big. That's one of the biggest questions that you'll get. Hey, is there water in the basement?
Yeah,
Where's the basement
and that's something I
like?
try to
Yeah,
like
that's
really
big.
watch out for because I've had flooding issues at my house in my past and worst experience in my life. So I always try to I never want someone to go through that, and that's something like if I can have knowledge there to let them know like this is a reoccurring thing or it has happened,
Yeah.
because
And it could have happened in the past, and if there's waterproofing
Yeah.
in the basement, sub pump, maybe they've taken care of it. So
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, man.
Guys, if you have any more questions for Mark, any inspection related questions, where can we find you?
SpringerServices.com. And then our office number's 240-509 or 559-0400.
We'll have all of his information in the description below here, so that way,
That's
if you
right.
do need to contact Mark, by all means, he's a great resource, very knowledgeable. So give him a call if you have any questions. And if you have any questions that maybe you haven't covered, like some stories about your home inspections, share them with us, or if you want to get on and talk about them, that's what we're here for. We're always here for interesting people.
And snakes.
Yeah. Don't bring the snakes.
That's right. All the links to our social media will be in the description below, as well as the brand new @Bearded Realtors on Instagram. So thanks
Give us
for
a
hanging
like,
out.
subscribe, right?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Like
Yeah.
and subscribe for sure.
Yep.
And call it a
All
wrap.
right. Till next time.
Till next time.